भाई वाह।
Kanishka, is the screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those who tell the stories rule the world. Good morning, everyone. Today I, Tushta Kaleem, along with my group partner, Mohammad Zia Hassan, will be presenting an article titled as Telling Tales by Stephen Denning. First, let us have a quick look over the topics that we are going to cover in this article. We will begin with the introduction of the author, followed by the key learnings of storytelling and its catalog, and finally, the conclusion of this article. So, about the author. This article is penned down by Mr. Stephen Denny. He was the former program director of knowledge management at the World Bank. Then, he began to consult with companies on knowledge management. This article is based on his experience during the different phases of his life.
Good morning, everyone. It is said that the greatest art in the world is the art of storytelling. But what is this art of storytelling? It requires creativity, vision, skill, and practice. Storytelling is an ancient and valuable art. As long as there have been people, there have been stories. Stories are everywhere, but it can be hard to find a good storyteller. Storytelling is more than just reading the words of a story. In this presentation, we will understand this art and all the key points related to effective storytelling. Great stories are relatable, believable, evocative, inclusive, unifying, emotive, contagious, inspiring, useful, and important. In the words of Muriel, the universe is made of stories, not atoms. Storytelling involves a variety of narratives that suits different scenarios. This article deals with the various points that we need to keep in mind while delivering a story. Some of the key learnings about storytelling that we can extract from the author's experience and knowledge are the power of narrative, a poorly told story, tales of success and failure, a collective yawn, and an enticing but hazy future. Now, let us look into each point in detail, where the first point is the power of narrative. Storytelling is the art of using language to reveal the elements and image of a story, whereas analysis is a detailed examination of elements of something. Analysis is what derives business thinking. If Rushda is thinking about storytelling to a group of executives, she should better be prepared as most executives operate with a particular and justified mindset. Here is the role of effective storytelling. Because analysis might excite the mind, but it hardly offers a route to the but it hardly offers a route to my heart. Leadership involves inspiring people. Even the most logical argument usually don't do the trick, but effective storytelling does. Next point we have as a poorly told story. Maximalist narration is usually long and complex. Telling a story in this way to a corporate audience will not work, as neither they have time nor the patience. But a minimalist narration will be effective because it lacks details and textures. A person should make a point in seconds, not in minutes. Aristotle once said stories should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It should include complex characters as well as a plot. But modern business has no place for stories to be full of details and colors. Stories in business organizations should be short and simple, and they should allow the listener's mental space to relate with the story. Next up, we have the point as tales of success and failure. Positive stories are those stories where the characters are so good that they make you feel bad. These stories show things as they should be. It is crafted to motivate people. Whereas negative stories are about what must have actually happened. These stories are designed to share knowledge. Negative stories can be more powerful than positive ones because people learn more from their mistakes than from their success. The purpose of telling a story might determine its form. Like stories intended to transfer knowledge must be true. They are not meant to inspire people but to make them cautious. These stories would have negative tone rather than positive. Next up, we have a point as a collective yawn, boring stories. These stories are rich in detail. Most of these stories provide a solution to a technical problem. It lacks plot and characters. They are hardly a story, but it is both informative and interesting to its intended audience, like technicians, engineers, developers, etc. The link between storytelling and leadership is stories help leaders to define their personality, help in boosting others' confidence, and provide some ideas of how they act in a situation. Leaders also use stories to inculcate a positive set of corporate values and beliefs in the hearts and minds of employees. Leaders can bring the principle alive through storytelling. Finally, we have the last point as an enticing but hazy future. It is said that the best way to get humans to venture into unknown terrain is to make the terrain familiar and desirable by taking them there first in their imagination. And here is the role of storytelling, as it is the most powerful route to people's imagination. There are stories used in situations that called for reactive rather than proactive measures. These stories are negative ones and circulate like a virus in the organization. Also, stories designed to prepare people for a change need to evoke the future and provide directions to get there. Now, I request my team member Ruzda to further present the article.
In the words of Steve Jobs, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation that is to come. Now, coming to the second part of the article, we have a storytelling catalog. This catalog summarizes all the key points of storytelling and provides a variety of narrative patterns that leaders can use to achieve their goals. These patterns are illustrated in the diagram. Now, let us look what each of the pattern is about. First up, we have sparking action. We know that leadership is about getting people to change, and to achieve this goal, the leader needs to communicate the complex nature of changes that are required for the organization to enthusiastically carry them out. For this objective, such a story is told which is based on an actual event, preferably a recent event, in order to seem relevant. The story is required to have enough detail to be credible, but not so content rich that the audience gets completely wrapped up into it. Because if that happens, then the people won't have the mental space to create a similar scenario for change in their own organization. The second point we have is communicating who you are. So, one isn't likely to lead people through wrenching change if they don't trust us. And if they are to trust us, they need to know us, who we are, where we have come from, and why we hold the views we do. Ideally, they'll end up not only understanding us, but also empathizing with us. So, stories for this purpose are usually based on a life event that reveals some strength or vulnerability and shows that is what the speaker took from the experience. Next point we have is transmitting values. When the purpose of storytelling is to instill values in the organization, then a story of this type ensures that the audience understands how things are done around here. Religious leaders have used such stories for thousands of years to communicate values to the respective communities. Such stories are usually set in some kind of general past and have few context setting details, but the context needs to seem relevant to the listeners. The fact of such tales might be hypothetical, but they must be believable at the same time. But then, narratives alone cannot establish values in the organization. The leaders need to live up to these values on a daily basis. Next point we have is fostering collaboration. Every management talks about the value of getting people to work together and encourage conversation. But the question arises how? One such approach is to generate a common narrative around a group's concerns and goals, beginning with a story told by one member of the group. Ideally, that first story sparks another, which in turn sparks another. And if this process continues, group members develop a shared perspective, one that creates a sense of community. The first story must be emotionally moving enough to unleash the narrative impulse in others, to create a readiness to hear more stories. It could, for example, vividly describe how the speaker grappled with a difficult work situation. Next point we have is taming the grapevine. Rumors flow constantly through every organization. Have you heard the latest? It is a refrain that's difficult for managers to deal with. Denying a rumor can give it credibility. So, as an executive, such thing can be dealt by harnessing the energy of the grapevine to diffuse the rumor by using a story to convince listeners that the rumor is either untrue or unreasonable. This kind of story highlights the incongruity between the rumor and the reality. One could also use gentle satire to mock the rumor's author, or even oneself in an effort to undermine the rumor's power. Next point we have is sharing knowledge. So, much of the intellectual capital of an organization is not written down anywhere, but it resides in the minds of people. So, communicating this know how across an organization and beyond typically occurs informally through sharing of stories. Knowledge sharing narratives are unusual in that they lack a hero or even a detectable plot. They are more about problems and how and why they got, or we can say more likely why they didn't get resolved. They include a description of the problem, the setting, and the solution. And because they highlight a problem, they tend to have a negative tone. And because they often focus on a specific problem, so they might be of little interest outside a specific group of people. In a corporate setting, stories about problems don't flow easily, not only because admitting mistakes, but also because in the flash of success, people tend to forget what they learned along the way. As a result, the knowledge sharing story cannot be compelled, they have to be teased out. And finally, we have the last point as leading people into the future. One part of the leader's job is preparing others for what lies ahead, whether in the concrete terms of the actual scenario or the more conceptual terms of a vision. A story can help take listeners from where they are now to where they need to be by making them comfortable with an image of the future. The problem, of course, lies in crafting a suitable narrative about the future because the future is uncertain and unknowable. Thus, if such stories are to serve their purpose, they should whet listeners' imaginative appetite about the future without providing the details what the future will hold or what it will become like. Listeners should be able to remove the stories in their minds as the future unfolds with all its unexpected twists and turns. And clearly, the story should portray this state in a positive way because people are more likely to overcome uncertainty about change if they are shown what to aim for rather than what to avoid. So finally, we have moved toward the conclusion of this article. So from this article, we can conclude that to use storytelling as an effective leadership skill, one needs to deliver the right story at the right time and with the right tone to create the right impact. That was all from our side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roshita and Zia. That was a good presentation. Now, is Kulsum present in the class? Kulsum Meji, are you
Yes,
present?
sir.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Kulsum, I should have informed you right in the beginning, but you are the reporter for today's session. So
Okay.
kindly take a note of the key observations that you feel are important for these speakers. Okay. So
Yes,
after
sir.
this session, after we are through with the second presentation, we will get back to you and we'll have your feedback first on the performance of these speakers. Okay.
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 So now can we have the second presentation?
Yes, sir. Sir, as my group partner is not present, sir, I will be presenting alone.
Okay. What happened?
Sir, actually, we did not coordinate it well enough, and right now he's also suffering from typhoid, so he will not be presenting with me. I'll be presenting alone.
But he's risking 20 marks. That's a big number.
Yes, sir. Sir, I don't know about him, sir. I made the presentation on my own, sir, and it is Sir, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, it's visible.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir, and my dear friends. My name is Gaur Krishna Singh, and today I am here to present a presentation on the topic The Smart Talk Trap by Jeffrey Pfeffer and Robert Sutton from the Hardware's Business Review. It begins with the story of two companies, one of which was a global oil and metal company, and the other was a large furniture company, both of which were driven by small sales and low profits. As the company was struggling, they knew that major restructuring of the company was required at that time, and for that, they conducted various meeting presentation. But even after an year has elapsed, no major or concrete decision was taken by both the companies, and everything was hot air. At the center of both the companies, there is an inertia which is plaguing company of every type, whether it is a global conglomerate or a 20 employee startup, or whether it is a capital intensive manufacturer or a knowledge service based firms. It is the inertia of knowing too much and doing too little. And this phenomena is called the knowing doing gap. Whenever a company,
Vishnu, your slides are not changing.
actually, I'm not showing the slides right now.
Okay, okay, sorry. I'm really sorry.
Whenever a company suffers from low sales or less profits, the executives of the companies know what is to be done through their past experiences or through the information available in the market. They know what should be their course of action to improve the results of the functioning of the company. But still, although all the knowledge is floating around, there is no major actions. There is no doing at all. This is known as the knowing doing gap. A particular kind of talk inhibits the company of every type or size, which is known as a smart talk trap. The ingredients of a smart talk trap includes being confident, knowing doing what causes the knowing doing gap. What are the main reasons for the knowing doing gap? Knowing doing gap occur because executives which are in the business schools are taught how they should talk smart rather than actions. People people who attend the business schools all around the world are graded on the basis of how smart they can talk. They are trained to talk smart, and it is eventually what is going to pay them. Those who talk smarts have articulate informations about anything. They have interesting information and ideas, but when the time of actions comes, they hardly do anything. So this observation causes the knowing doing gap. What is a smart talk? Students are taught how to talk smart. They are graded on the basis of their smart talk in the classroom. It leads to a pernicious effect. People are judged on the basis of smart talks. It is often seen that people who talk more than others are seen as a leader. Research also suggests that people who talk smartly are seen as influential by both outsider and by both the members of the group. But there are some companies which have managed to avoid the smart talk and have attained great heights. Like as we have the example of the company Xerox. In the 1980s, Xerox realized that to improve their company or to improve their future, they need to work on the quality of the product. So for the 4 years, they conducted various meetings. They made articles. They trained their workers or employees for the restructuring of the company, and many handbooks were made. But after research was conducted, it was realized that all that was hot air and nothing concrete was done. Although the company was later able to uh, restructure the company, but who knows through all these years how many growth years of them have been lost, how many employees become frustrated and must have left the company, or how many customers have left the company, or major investors has also left the company. The major essence of a smart talk is also known as criticism and complexity, which always widens the gap between the knowing and doing. Like it is also believed that people think complex languages and concepts are better than the simpler ones. People also think that being critical of the others make them better than the others. They do not believe in the simple and plain idea. They also criticize juniors in meetings. Like whenever a meeting of the seniors occur in a company, juniors are being criticized whenever they put forward their idea, and as a result, the company is filled with artists who only know how to talk smart, but at the time of action, they know nothing.
Excuse
It can
me.
be, yes.
It's on only on the first page where you have written submitted by and submitted to. Are you sure you are not changing the slides?
Actually, I'm changing it. I'm on the fourth slide,
No, but
four of
it is
it.
not moving. It
Can you
is
Sorry,
moving.
sir.
represent it? Can you represent it? And if you are clicking on slideshow, please don't click on that
Now it is
thing.
moving. Yes, now it is
Yes,
moving.
yes. Don't click on slideshow, okay?
Okay. Uh, it is seen that complex languages and concepts are believed by the people that they are better than the simpler ones. People also think that being critical of the views of the others, make them better than the simpler ones. In the meetings of the companies, it is also seen that juniors executives or employees which are junior than the senior ones are criticized whenever they give any idea or whenever they want to present an idea to their seniors. There are very rare instances when a manager uses a simple presentation or a single slide to give an idea. It often leads to confusion, as it was seen in the case of a software company. A software company was there who gave their employees new laptops as they wanted to shift to a virtual organization. But instead of using a simpler language and plain concept, they used complex procedures, which led to the rumors that the company is shutting down, and it created fear in the mind of the employees. It took them weeks, several months to clear all the rumors that their company is not going to shut down and that they're only transforming into virtual organizations. So it criticism and complexity led to the widening of the knowing doing gap. But now there are some companies which have managed to which have managed to substitute action for talk. They have managed to shut the trap and lessen the gap. In all those companies there are five major things which are common, like they have leaders who know how to do the work. Like there are companies whose leader exactly knows what their company is composed of, what are their real capabilities and challenges, what are the core functions of the company. They used to work on the front line, as we can see in the example of the Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who is now the richest person in the world currently. uh, Elon Musk used to spend most of his time in the factory floor or the ground floor, and by working on the front line, he knows what are the challenges which the company is facing and what are the capabilities of the company. So, this type of executives know what are the real capabilities of their firms, and also this type of leaders are less likely to be swayed away by smart talk, and they cannot be easily fooled by smart talk, or they cannot engage in smart talk trap. Second, they have a bias for plain language and simple concept. Ex- Executives of the companies which have managed to lessen the gap between the knowing and doing knows the real value of the simple concepts and understandable concept. They consider common sense as a complementary than an insult. It is often seen that they believe that simple things can be easily done and they cannot be taken as an excuse. Like if a executive is told to do something, some complex task, he may give an excuse that he might not have understood what is to be done. But by using plain or simple languages, these excuses can be avoided, as it was seen in the case of Apple. When Steve Jobs was reappointed as the CEO of Apple in the late 1970s, uh, he he asked about the various products of the company which are in the market. There were very many complex names in the market, which even his employees cannot understood, and not even he couldn't grasp. He cannot explain the product to everyone. There were so many products floating from the Apple. So he took a bold decision and decided that every other products would be stopped and they will be focusing only on four major products like the Apple AirPods, iPhones, laptops, and MacBooks. This resulted in what Apple is today. It is the most valuable company in the world right now. So by using the simple language and plain languages, simple concept, Steve Jobs was able to lessen the knowing doing gap. Third, they frame questions on how, not just why. Criticism often stops the best mind of the people, best mind of the company to come out. Like junior may have the best mind, may have the best ideas for a company, for the company, but they, due to the fear of being criticized, do not represent it. So, so some companies have managed to stop this by creating a phenomena of stopping the criticism, so like the executives of the companies can ask how we should do it whenever an idea is represented or whenever an idea is produced. The employees or the executives can ask how we should do it rather than why. They cannot ask why we should do it, they can only ask how we should do it. The main focus is to find the fault and fix it, not on finding the fault and criticizing the other executives like why we should do it or not. Fourth, they have a strong action for closing the loop. Like there are some companies which have managed to close the knowing doing gap. In those companies, the meetings does not end with a decision, rather it ends on actions. Fifth, they believe that experience is the best teacher. Company that elude the knowing doing gap, they make the process of doing into an opportunity to learn. Some companies believe that it is an opportunity to learn for them, and they even leap into a project even before realizing that it will work or not, just to gain knowledge or experiences. Like the story of the IDEO, which is a international product designing company where engineers are trained to make a prototype of the any idea which they came across as soon as they learn about it, as it will make their engineers to learn something new. We have also had the story of the Bayport terminal, whose newly appointed manager, Kylie, took it to herself by learning for 1 year and produced a positive result. She was driven by all the five principles of lessening the knowing doing gap. She taught herself about what is to be done, then she taught all the employees of the company what should be their course of action and how they could do the job in the best way. And by doing all this, she was able to close down the knowing doing gap in her company. And the last, we have the rewards of action. By closing the knowing doing gap, a company can benefit its employees, customers, and executive, and all the people that are around the company will flourish. But by whenever an action is substituted by talks, harmful effects will take place. And people should remember that action should never be substituted for talk, as it will result in both the loss of the company valuable times and everything, or the growth opportunity years for the company as well. Thank you, sir. That is all from my side.
Okay, thank you, Krishna. So can we first listen to Kulsum?
Yes, sir. So shall I start?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. All of them seem.
Just a minute, Kulsum. Before you give your feedback, may I request Rushda Kalim to have a keep noting down the key feedbacks which have been offered. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so just put it in terms of bullet points,
Okay, sir.
please.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Sir, everyone seems to be very much confident. All of them have a good command over language. And so, what I like most about Rosda's and Zia's presentation was that the coordination between them is very good. Like the Zia don't have to say to change the slide and this. So this was the best part. And the presentation was also short as well as content rich. And but they can be more expressive. The expressions I think was a little bit low. And so in Krishna's presentation, Krishna delivers well and he delivers well in this absence of his partner. He also have a good command over language, but it seems like he's reading the text. And the presentation also has heavy text.
Okay. Yes, I think that's a good observation, Kulsum. You have very rightly pointed out that in case of Rushda and Zia, the level of coordination was very high. And that must have been because of the prior preparation that they must have done together.
Yes.
So that was very good. And yes, Krishna, your presentation was quite content rich, I would say. And you presented the ideas with clarity. But what happens is, because you were supposed to speak all the time for the partner also who was not present, uh, if we keep on delivering in the same manner, it creates a monotony also. So you have to be doubly, conscious that there should not be boredom in the class because you are going to speak. Now, one thing which Rushda and Zia, for example, were doing good, they were interchanging. They had that advantage. So it was not that Rushda will complete her part and then Zia will take over. So they were, interchanging in between, and that also breaks the monotony. But in your case, Krishna, it was, getting a bit monotonous because you were speaking at the same pace, in the same style, without much variations in the pitch and the volume, and that often creates boredom in the class. Okay? So you have to be slightly more conscious on this account. Then one more thing which I felt about any other feedback apart from this, any class member of the class wishes to offer to these three persons? We can come back to you, but let me share with you a few points which I have noted down. Although Rushta and Zia they have been very rightly complimented for a very effective presentation, I have no issues with that. But whatever feedback we offer, it is in the spirit that even the best can be improved. So what I'm suggesting is in this context. Like for example, Zia, in the beginning of your slide, you were showing the characteristics of a good story, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But what happened was that because of the animation and the way you have presented it, it was not readable to us. We were listening to the characteristics, but we were not able to read those characteristics on the slide. So again, a very important C of communication is consideration. You should be able to look at things from other person's perspective. Something may look very artistic to you when you see it on the screen. But if it is not readable to the audience, then there is no point. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So this is something which you may be more. Otherwise, overall slides were good. They were interestingly made with a lot of visuals also. That was the good thing. One more aspect which you can think about, both you and Rushta. Uh, just now we had a presentation on storytelling only, isn't it? The story moves smoothly, you know. Like for example, if I'm sharing a story and I say, okay, now the next point is this. We can always say, we can frame sentences in a manner that it actually appears like a story, which is moving. People are glued to it. But when you say the next point is, the connect actually gets lost. It appears as if you are performing a job which has 5 points. So just think of ways of creating even, better coherence in your presentation. So there are no disjointed parts. They appear like moving as the river flows. So this is something which you have to think about. But overall, it was a good job done, and both of you did a. In fact, let me ask you, how do you feel, Rushda and Zia, after this presentation? What is your own feedback?
So initially, when we started, there was a lack of coordination and confidence. But then we practiced, and even today, before the this final presentation, we had a session to coordinate with each other, and I feel that that was a positive point for us. But then all the feedback received from you and Kulsum and everyone in the comments, we need to work on it because since this was our first presentation, so there's always a room for improvement. So we hope to do better in future.
Zia, what is your comment on your performance?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we have done a lot of practice and made a lot of effort in making the presentation interesting and informative both. But there is always a chance of improvement, and we will work upon it next time, sir.
So preparation, I also admire, and I compliment you for putting in the right kind of efforts before
sir.
coming for the presentation. And that's very crucial for a good presentation. Yesterday, I made this observation that 90% of our effectiveness is already set when we come on the podium or when we come to deliver a presentation. And that is the homework that we have done for that presentation. So only the 10% part, the tip of the iceberg, is visible over here. The rest is the work effort done at your own end. So well done that you have done that effort, which it was showing in your presentation. Okay. And
Thank you, sir.
Krishna, what do you feel about your presentation? What is your take?
Sir, actually, I am not satisfied with my presentation as I was not able to deliver it properly and the confidence was lacking. And as you said, sir, I was monotonous all the time. I realized it, but sir, there is room for improvement. I will surely try to improve myself for later presentations.
I think if you look back at your at your preparation, there are two parts of the preparation. One is understanding the content, and second is expressing it in the most interesting manner. So there you may have to personalize your language also. Like for example, you may not use the exact words which have been used. You will not deviate from the idea, but you can always have alternate ways of presenting an idea. Isn't it? So what I think is that one part of your preparation was very good, and that was understanding the content. You understood the content very well,
Yes, sir.
but presenting it in an interesting manner, that was the part which required some more focus, and that would have made the whole thing even more interesting to the audience. Okay. So you did the hard work, but maybe you needed some more smart work for making an impact. So the difficult part of it you did very well. That was understanding the content, making PowerPoint slides, putting the content on it. Maybe, for example, just if you revisit your slides, you will find that some of the slides are heavy, have more content than required. So if you curtail we have already discussed this point that there should only be points in the slide, bullet points, no running content. And then these technical glitches which we are always faced with. I also I'm always scared because I'm not that tech savvy. So you are making a presentation and your slides are not moving and all that. So maybe it's a good idea to not to be too inward focused that I have to present. Be audience focused also. In fact, rather than Kanishka pointing out to you, you should have been careful on this account and should have asked this. Now I am on the second slide, for example, or I hope this slide is visible to you. So that would have given you a chance to revisit the issue on your own rather than somebody pointing it out.
Yes, sir.
So these are some of my comments. Now coming to the content part of it, the way ideas were presented, both the storytelling one and your smart talk track. Actually, what is the core message for all of us? The core message for all of us on this account is actions cannot substitute for words. To me, this is the core message. Yes or no? For both the articles. The stories, for example, which have a life connect, some real life experiences shared in that, they stay better. Likewise, in the smart talk trap, if somebody thinks that only by talking one can get away and there is no need to do anything, then I think there is a problem in today's life. And let me share with you a story from Islamic history, which conveys this idea very, very powerfully. And some of you might have read about or must have heard about a treaty which happened between the Prophet of Islam and the Makkans, the residents of Makkah, who created a situation whereby Prophet of Islam decided to migrate from Makkah to Medina. Makkah was his original town. He tried to preach his message there, but after 7 or 8 years of his struggle, he realized that he is not able to make an impact. And he decided to migrate to Medina, and he settled there. And in Medina, he found a fertile ground, and a rudimentary Islamic state came into being. A lot of people started accepting Islam, and he had a core group of followers who were committed to him. Then what happened that once he saw it in his dream. Makkah was naturally very close to his heart, one being his native town, and second, it had the house of the Almighty, which we call Kaaba, which many of you must have seen in the pictures. And it was a spiritual place. So the Prophet saw it in his dreams that I am destined to make a visit to Makkah and perform the pilgrimage. Many of you know that this pilgrimage, when it is performed in a particular month, it is called Hajj. So many of our friends who may not be part of this faith, but they must have listened to this, okay, we are going to Hajj. Hajj is a very important event for a practicing Muslim, and he aspires to visit Makkah for performing Hajj. So Prophet saw it in his dreams that he is destined to perform this pilgrimage, which in other months, other than the months specified for Hajj, it is called Umrah. This visit is called Umrah. So he's going to perform an Umrah. Now he was very excited when he saw this dream, and he shared it with his close companions that this is what I have seen, and I feel like going to Makkah. Now on listening to this, around 1400 people assembled, and they said, okay, if you will go, we will also go with you. Now the situation was very, very challenging one, in the sense that the Makkans were still very hostile, and there was a threat that they might be attacked. But the situation was not tough for only Islamic contingent, it was very tough for the Makkans also. Because the Arab custom was that if somebody is coming to perform a religious pilgrimage, because this house of Almighty was, revered by people from different tribes, from who may not be even, practicing Islam. So you can't deny entry of anyone who wants to perform a religious pilgrimage to that site. So they also knew that if they attack the contingent who are going to perform a religious pilgrimage, it will earn a very bad name to them, and they will be ostracized from the entire Arab society. So the journey started, the Prophet moved with his contingent, and the Makkans decided that rather than attacking them in the Makkah, why not attack them on the way? Somehow the Islamic contingent got this news that they might be attacked. So they changed the route because they wanted to avoid confrontation at any cost. Then they went to a place called, they took a side turn and they went to a place called Hudaybiyah. And that is why this treaty, which I am referring to, which I referred to in the beginning, is called Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So Islamic contingent was resting there, and they wanted to, the Makkah town was very near from there, and they could have reached there any point of time. Then they sent one of their emissary to Makkah and talk to the Meccan leaders there and tell them that what is the purpose of this mission. And the emissary went with a very clear message that we have come unarmed, we are not carrying arms, we are just for this pilgrimage, so kindly allow us to perform this pilgrimage. The contingent then, the Makkans, they thought that this would be a defeat for us. So, but they were in a fix also. So they sent one of their emissary to Islamic contingent, who was considered to be a very hard negotiator. And he came with this idea, and they said, okay, we have no problem in you performing this religious pilgrimage called Umrah, but we will not allow you this year. We will allow you next year. So the negotiations started, and finally it was agreed. The Prophet agreed, okay, I will perform it next year. Now, this was very, very disturbing for the companions who had come all the way. You can imagine the mood. They were thinking that we will go to the house of Almighty, visit it. They were very, very crestfallen, heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for them. In fact, some of the clauses of the treaty were so, not in favor of Islamic contingent, that people were disturbed on that account also, and they were thinking why Prophet has accepted these conditions, which sounded a bit discriminatory. For example, one of the clause was that if any rebel from Makkah goes to Medina without the permission of his mentor, he would have to be returned by the Islamic contingent. But the converse was not true. If any person from Medina goes to Makkah and Medina contingent wants it back, they would not be obliged to return. This was totally unfair and unjust. In fact, one of the person came running at that situation from Makkah, and he said, I have embraced Islam, but my father is not allowing me to embrace Islam, and they are creating all kind of problems for me. They are beating me. They are causing physical hardships to me, and I want to go with you. But by then, the treaty had already been put in place. And but the Prophet said, no, as per the treaty, you have to go back to Makkah, and we'll pray for you that your hardships may be removed, but we can't take you along. So all those situations, they created a huge emotional turmoil in the Islamic country. And the breaking point came, Hazrat Ali, the fourth Caliph of Islam, who was very close to Prophet. He was a learned man, and he was writing the treaty. Finally, when the treaty was put down on paper and the two parties were to sign it, out of sheer veneration, Hazrat Ali wrote Rasulullah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Rasulullah means the Prophet of Allah. The Makkans objected to that. They said कि हमारा तो झगड़ा ही इस बात का है, हम इन्हें प्रॉफिट मानते कब हैं? अगर हम इन्हें प्रॉफिट मान लेते तो फिर झगड़ा ही किस बात का है? आप तो जो अरब कस्टम है उसके हिसाब से इनका नाम लिखिए और इनकी वल्दियत लिखिए, मोहम्मद बिन अब्दुल्ला, बस दैट्स ऑल. And Hazrat Ali said, I can't do that. But the Prophet intervened and he said, they have a point. They can't be forced to accept me as Prophet. So Prophet took the pen in his own hand from Hazrat Ali and struck down that Rasulullah from. Now you can imagine how it must have been disturbing to the entire Islamic contingent. They were almost on the verge of crying. But Prophet was very somber and he said, see, you go, the treaty is performed. And we are going back and we'll come back next year. And he said, treat as if the pilgrimage has been done and all the rituals that are to be performed, they may be performed here only. Like for example, take out that attire which people wear when they go for Hajj, or get their heads shaved and perform the sacrifices that are to be performed. So, and you will be surprised, Prophet repeated this command 3 times and no one moved. And this was the first time in the history when Prophet's command was not obeyed. In a very disturbed state, he came back into his tent where his wife was there. And she was blessed with great wisdom. And when he shared his disappointment with what has happened, she said, you don't worry. This is just a situation because of which they are acting like this. They have great faith and veneration for you. She suggested you go out and you perform whatever you want to perform. And then he came out of the tent and he got his head shaved, and whatever animal sacrifices were to be performed, he did that. Now slowly, bit by bit, others started joining. And then he came back. So what is the message here? To me, I think the key important message is that even Prophet's words can fail, but his actions never fail. When he started doing it himself, everybody followed. Till he was only commanding, there was no movement. So please have this idea in your mind that if you are a glib talker, you speak well, you have good command over language, that alone will not carry you forward always. Ultimately, actions speak louder than words. This to me is the core message of these 2 articles which were presented to you, especially the second one, the Smart Talk track. So now I think we are coming to an end of this session. I have a request to make to 3%. I've already requested Supriya to record the key observations, the key inputs given in the first session. Then I've requested Kamran to do it for the second session, which we had yesterday. And today I'm requesting Rushda to please do the same for today.
Okay,
And
sir.
these 3 persons will record the observation, will compile the observations together, isn't it, for each session, so that we have a kind of a stock of what were the inputs offered to the speakers, so that next round of speakers keep that in mind, and these concerns are addressed when they prepare for their presentation. Okay. So let us call it a day.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.